Youth sports can be really hard, especially if you're wanting to raise your kid in ways that produce healthy adults when they're done playing. Each week on Healthy Sports Parents, we have conversations designed to help you keep your athlete mentally and emotionally healthy. Whether you're just starting out in rec ball or you're traveling every weekend to elite tournaments, we're here to help you strengthen your relationship with your kids through sports. If we haven't met, my name is Jonathan Carone, and I'm the host of today's show. Today, we're joined by senior softball player Cori McMillan from Virginia Tech. Cori was named All-American in her junior season, and I say that she is my favorite softball player because she's the only college softball player I know. But I have gotten the privilege of seeing her work out and train over the summer the last 3 years. In fact, when she left the school that she started out with, she went to a lower D1 school right out of high school. And the assistant coach who recruited her ended up going to a different job. So they were not there her freshman and sophomore year. After her sophomore year, she entered the transfer portal. And that summer, I got to see the good, the bad, the ugly that went into going to a different school after you started at one. And I was there in the gym the day she got the call from Virginia Tech that they were offering her the scholarship so she could transfer to major college softball and finish out her career in the ACC. And I will never forget the sheer joy on her face from realizing she had accomplished one of her life's biggest dreams by getting that call, and seeing her put the work in to become an All-American and to become the player she is today has just been really fun to watch from afar. Every spring, whenever Virginia Tech is playing, we have their games on in the gym. And if Cori comes up to bat, everyone gathers around the TV. They take a break from whatever they're working out just to watch Cori because we want to support Cori in whatever way we can. So we're going to bring Cori in, and today we're talking all about what it takes to become not just an All-American, but a college athlete, because we know that so many of you have kids who may want to play in college, but you don't know how to get them there. You've never parented a kid to college. So we want to give you the perspective of a college athlete so you can see what it takes to help your kid get to the level they want to be. So let's go ahead and welcome in Cori McMillan. And we're here with Cori McMillan. Cori, go ahead and say hey to everybody.
Hi.
So one of the fun things we're doing on the show is before we talk to people who are parents, we're asking them to tell us about their kids, but you're still in school, so you're not a parent yet. So we're going to flip this on you a little bit. Can you tell me what your parents were like growing up, or even now as a player, some of the fun things they did, or just a memory you have that's a great parent moment?
Yes, they were always very supportive of anything related to me, especially sports specific. Some of my favorite memories growing up, since I'm now traveling in college, I don't get to travel with her anymore, but growing up, getting to go on the road with my mom was always very fun because we'd always talk on the way there about like hopes for the weekend, what's going on in our lives, school, this, that, the other. And then on the way home, we always like debriefed the weekend. We always, throughout the weekend, we're like, oh, I can't wait to debrief this on the way home. I can't wait to talk about this on the way home. And that was always something I looked forward to.
So was the debrief something you pushed for or something your mom pushed for?
Me more so because sometimes I just like have to speak out loud. Like sometimes I can't just like think about things and like fully grasp them or like understand them. Sometimes I have to like speak them. So having someone to just like, I call it a thought vomit. Having someone to just like lay it all out to was always very fun. And she normally knew the right thing to say back or always had an opinion for what I was saying. So,
and what I love about your mom is known to your teammates wherever you have played as Cori's mom. Like when I see your mom, I say, "Hey, Cori's mom."
yes.
That's just like that's what she's doing, and I love that that your mom has been around so much that is a name that not only is she proud of, but she's known by that, and she like it doesn't matter where she's at. If you say, "Hey, Cori's mom," your mom is turning around to say hey to whoever's saying hey to her.
I love that. All of my teammates growing up on whatever team I've ever been on, including the one I'm on now, even like my new freshmen who I've only known for 3 months, 4 months, every time they see me, they're like, "What's your mom doing? How's your mom's lifting? I heard she just like competed in a powerlifting competition." I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm good. I'm good."
But no, like one of the goals of this show is to help people have that type of relationship with their kid, because the people listening to this are the ones who want to be like Cori's mom. And so the goal of today is, I know a lot of people listening that have kids who, as young as my kids at 8 and 9, maybe are already in high school, but their kids want to play at the college level. So I want to give them a peek into what it took for you to get there and to become the athlete you are today. So to get to where we are today, we have to start at the beginning. Let's go back to little kid Cori. Was softball where you always landed, or were there other things in the mix growing up as well?
So I did quite a bit when I was a kid, actually. I think I started with soccer. That lasted maybe 2 practices because I hated the running. Moved to basketball because I thought that was less running, and it wasn't. I did that throughout middle school. I think I did that up until 8th grade. I did volleyball. I tried to do volleyball for a little bit. Never made a middle school team. Tried to do sand volleyball. The schedule was too conflicting with travel softball. My grandfather really wanted me to excel in volleyball because he was a volleyball coach. So he pushed for that pretty hard. I was a Girl Scout also. It was never really just softball. It was always multiple different things. But once I got to high school, I had to pick, because to get recruited, there are people that do get recruited for multiple sports. There are people who can play multiple sports in high school, but my high school basketball team was always so good that they were going to states in March, and my softball schedule started in February. So I had to end up picking whether varsity softball or being a dual sport athlete was more important to me, and I was never as good at basketball as I knew I could be at softball. My mom actually was really mad at me. I purposefully skipped tryouts after she told me I had to go. And I called her at like 3 p.m. when tryouts were at like 4. And I was like, "Oh, I'm on my way home." And she was like, "Why?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't bring my stuff." She was never mad about that, but I ended up choosing for myself that it was just going to be the one sport. But anyone in my family was supportive of whatever.
So your specializing was less because someone told you had to, and more because you saw the options in front of you and said, "Hey, I want to get here." And playing multiple sports actually is going to get in the way because the schedules overlap.
Yeah, nothing I ever did growing up was mandated. Like it was never a "you're going to this." It was always a, "if you want to play the sport, we'll try to get you into the sport. If you don't, then you don't have to." It was never a "you're going to do this because I said so," which I think it was very important to me, because I'm the type of person that if you tell me to do something, I'm not going to want to do it at all. But if I'm like, "Oh,
I've
I
never seen
should,"
that
or
in you, ever.
but things I wanted to do, I was more eager to do and put more effort into. So my parents saw that and never tried to go against that or change that about me, which was really helpful.
Okay, so one of the things we've talked about on here with a couple other coaches and parents before is the idea that when kids are young, some kids want to be the best right away, and some kids just want to play the sport with their friends. Mm-hmm. Was softball for you always the "I want to be great at it," or did that come later after you learned to fall in love with it and enjoy playing it?
I don't think it started off as a "I want to be super good at it." I think it started off as my mom started taking me to a softball practice at, I don't know how old I was. I want to say I might have been like 8. I think she took me to a practice one day and was like, "Hey, just try this out, see what happens." I was definitely younger than 8 now that I think about it. But I enjoyed doing something different. Always enjoyed being outside, which is something basketball and volleyball never got me. So being outside for that was fun. For a while growing up, I played with older girls for a while when I was younger. I think I was 8 years old on a 12U team. And So it wasn't really about the friends as much as it was trying to get better from the jump, I would say. But I would never say it was a competition to be the best or a fight to be the best. As when I was a child, I think it was more so competition against myself because I've always been a perfectionist. Failure hasn't really been something that comes, I don't take it very well. I struggle with the thought of it. And I think that was more so the drive to be great at it. It wasn't for other people, it was more for my sanity.
So it was an intrinsic type of thing. Like you wanted it, and then your parents supported it once you decided you wanted it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So let's fast forward a little bit. You were 8U playing 12U. Let's go to middle school, high school. At what point did you realize you wanted to play in college? Was that something that came as a kid, or is that just something that developed over time?
I always had the dream of going to play a sport in college, but I don't think I always knew which one I wanted to do. But once I was finishing eighth grade and realized that summer basketball workouts were starting for high school, summer softball workouts were starting, I was like, I can't. I could have, but with school also, I was like, it's unrealistic for me to believe that I can do both sports, including missing the first almost probably half of the one I like more and knowing which one I want to go do in college. So a lot of eighth grade and the summer before high school, I spent thinking about which one I wanted to do going into college, which ended up being softball. And it was never really that hard of a thought for me because I knew by eighth grade, I knew I was good at it and I knew I could be really good at it. And it was something I thoroughly enjoyed doing. It never felt like a task.
So once you realized that you could be good, that thing clicked in you that, okay, this could be a thing.
Hmm.
What did that unlock in you? Or what, another way to think about that is how did that change your priorities going into high school? Because high school is a weird time for anyone, but as a 14-year-old girl, it's even weirder for girls going into high school, the pressures of that. What did knowing you wanted to play softball in high school, how did that change, or you wanted to play softball in college, how did that change how you approached high school?
I knew that I'd have to start working at it a lot more than I was. It was throughout middle school, obviously, you're still just like growing up, playing the sport, having fun with it, doing it in your free time. But I knew it had to become more than just I do it in my free time. I knew it became more like not homework, but kind of you had to do work outside of what you were required to do. And I knew that if I wanted to play in college, I needed to do more than what I was doing. And so I started doing a 5 tool program from, I think it started in September and went through February, all of the off season. And so I would do that from September to February for, I think I did it for 3 years. I think I did it freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. And you have to pick your priorities. Like my coach says now, you have when we do camps and stuff, we always have a Q&A with the girls that are there, and they ask us like what life is like as a student athlete. And one thing he always says is you have to pick between 5 things, and that's good grades, sleep, a social life, your sport, and fueling your body. And you can't have all 5. You can't realistically have all 5. And so I guess I kind of thought about that starting in high school. I knew that I couldn't go to training from 3 to 5 every day after school and still hang out with my friends all the time. I couldn't have travel ball tournaments every single weekend and still hang out with them on the weekends, which I learned to be okay with because I learned to find my social time within the sport, having my teammates as my best friends, spending time with them while also doing what I love to do.
Do you feel like, looking back, you missed out on anything because you committed to wanting to be great? Do you feel like anything at high school memories or even college, it's like, I wish I could have done this, but I was playing softball instead.
No. I mean, our team right now, of course, makes comments all the time about how we've never once had a spring break because that's in the middle of our season. But we do have a Thanksgiving break. We do have a Christmas break. We do have a summer. Like you don't miss out on much when you're enjoying what you're doing. And I thoroughly enjoy what I do and the people I do it with. So I don't ever feel like there's things I've missed out on growing up. If anything, I feel like there's things I've experienced that other people don't get the chance to.
I think that's a big part of it too, especially where you were the driving force of this. You were the driving force in your house of, I want to get better. And then parents supported that desire, as opposed to when parents push. I'm sure you've got some teammates at some point you've played with who their parents push them much harder than they love the actual sport. And they're good at it, but they're living out mom and dad's dream more so than they're living out their own right now. And those are probably the ones who feel like they're missing out. And so I think for parents listening, like that's the big thing we've talked about before, is like, what does your kid want? And we talked to Adam Godwin, who's a coach at Florida, their women's soccer team. And he said, like, our job as parents is to facilitate the passions of our kids. And it sounds like that's your story. You had this passion, and then the parental involvement was, okay, we're going to support Cori and getting Cori to where she wants to go, as opposed to Cori could be good. We're going to push Cori, but it's not Cori driving the ship the whole way. Like, does that sound like what we're talking about here?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so with that in mind, put yourself in the shoes of our listeners. They're parents who are raising a kid who's playing sports. Let's assume that kid wants to play in college. What's one thing you want those parents to know about their relationship with their kids as they parent them throughout this whole thing?
I wholeheartedly believe that me and my mom are so close because she was never shoving me into something I didn't want to do. It was always my opinion was what mattered the most, and what I wanted to do was the most important. And if she didn't agree with it, I would have never known. It was always if that's what you want to do, you do it. I'll help you get there however I can. And I think it's important that parents don't push their kids into something they don't want to do, because over the past couple years in college, like, obviously college ball is something completely different than high school or travel ball ever was. And I think doing it and not wanting to do it is more draining physically, mentally, emotionally than anything college could throw at you in general. Like over the past 3 years, last year was the happiest I've ever been in my sport, and it's the best I've ever performed. So not being pushed into something I didn't want to do helped me get better at it. And obviously, like, you're going to be more driven to do something you're good at. And if once I realized I was good at it, I was more driven to put more work into it to get better at it. And not being shoved along the way and like making it mandatory to do helped a lot, because I wasn't being drained by something because it was something I wanted to do, if that makes sense. I think
Absolutely.
I think it's most important that parents don't make it seem so deep, because it's not. Like, they're called extracurriculars for a reason. Like, they're not something you have to do. Like, they're something you should enjoy doing and something you want to be doing.
So I'm going to put you in the advice giving chair for a second. So this might be a little uncomfortable. I want to see what you say, because I like the way your brain works just in general. Let's say a parent has a kid who has potential. They see it, the kid could be good, but they don't love the sport yet, or they don't work hard at it yet. How would you, I guess, advise those parents to push a little bit on the kid who has potential, enjoys playing the sport, but isn't your mindset yet? There's potential to get there, but maybe they need a little bit more push than you needed. How would you encourage them to push their kid? Or would you?
I would say probably put them in situations where they realize they're good in it. Like put them in situations where they're participating in the sport, starting to realize that they're good at it, but also hitting bumps like roadblocks that they can overcome and realizing that it can get hard, but they are good enough to overcome it, because I feel like that sense of success within a kid could wire them to start to enjoy it a little more without having a parent be like, oh, you're going to keep doing this because I said you're going to. You don't get it yet, but you're going to. Like, they have to figure it out for themselves. So I think exposing them to different things across their sport that could get them to love it on their own is important. So not like throwing them into things unreasonable or like into situations like that they couldn't get themselves out of, but like situations that they do have to like work harder in or figure out how to get out of. Because once they do, they'll have that sense of satisfaction within them that like, oh, it is possible for me to do this, and I was good enough to complete this, that maybe it'll ring something that makes them drive more to do it. But I would never say like make it mandatory, something that they have to do regardless, and hope that they would one day start to enjoy it, because I've had plenty of friends that say they go through that. A couple that don't even play sports in college now because they didn't want to so bad growing up that they didn't put the work in to do that.
Yeah. So my daughter, who's 9, she had a soccer season in the fall that the team got a little more competitive than she wanted. She just wanted to play soccer with her friends. She didn't care about getting better. Like she doesn't care about being great. And so we worked through it during the season, like keep your commitments. You have to keep going, like all those things. Didn't let her quit, but told her, hey, like if you don't want to play on a team that's that competitive yet, I'd still like you to play because you enjoy playing the sport. You have some friends on a different team. We'll get you on that team and you guys can just go play soccer and hang out with your friends. That's totally fine. And the interesting thing about giving her the freedom to do that is she started playing better to end the season. Once she realized like I was okay with her, like supporting her where she was. I wasn't expecting her to be great. And then in the off season, she actually became interested in taking some lessons, off season training, like on her own to get a little bit better, even though she doesn't care about being the best. But I think by giving her the freedom to play it at her speed at the age of 9, that made her realize like, okay, I can do this. Like my dad supports me, but he doesn't expect all this great garbage out of me yet. And so that actually unlocks something in her. We'll see where it goes in the spring. Like we'll see how, if it continues, but my whole goal was for her to keep playing for her sake, just to enjoy being active and all that. I don't expect her to turn into an All-American. I would love for her to play middle school soccer. That's the next step for her. And if we get there, we get there. If we don't, we don't. But I think it was from not putting the pressure on her to be great or to be something she isn't yet that actually unlocked the desire to maybe get a little bit better. Okay. Most parents were not elite athletes themselves. So they don't understand the mindset of someone who wants to play in college or who is great in college. Is there anything... The answer to the question might be no, given what you've said so far, but is there anything you wish you could have verbalized different at 15 that you understand now that you could tell other parents like, hey, this is what your athlete may be thinking, but they don't know how to say it yet?
I never personally experienced stuff like that, but I had many friends talk to me about things like that because they knew I was in the situation that they wanted to be in. And I told them a lot that they need to tell their parents that their situations are not similar to ours now. And like something my mom says all the time is she's like, she played softball in high school, and she'll talk about it sometimes, but she'll verbalize that it's not the same as it is now. Like, I think people from older generations are very quick to be like, "Oh, I played softball. I played this. I was in the first. I was in the first generation that played fast pitch softball, but like that's not remotely what it is now."
It's a
When
slightly different game.
Yeah, like when you were playing fast pitch softball, you weren't getting 73 mile per hour rise balls. It's not the same thing at all. And I think it's important for parents to know that most kids are harder on themselves than a parent will ever be on them. And that's how I am. I'm so hard on myself, whether it's school or sports, that all of my coaches and family know that they can't be that hard on me because I'm already mentally doing it myself. So, not saying, oh, I went through this, this is what I did. Like, everyone's different and everyone's situation's different. Like, a situation that a parent went through or even a grandparent went through is not remotely going to be the same as it is now, just because of how much more like progressed, I guess, sports are and the world is even. It's most important, I think, to be where your feet are. Don't try to bring your kid back to when you played or bring yourself up to now when your kid's playing. Like, everyone's going to have different experiences. And I think being in the experience you're currently experiencing is going to be most important in a kid's like development within a sport or a passion.
The recruitment process has changed so much recently. You've gone through it twice. How would you encourage parents to encourage their kids who might be going through that process? Because it is insane. Like, I remember I didn't know you out of high school. I knew you when you went from your first school to tech. Mm-hmm. And I remember just the things and the craziness you were talking about that summer. Like, I can't imagine what it's like for a 15-year-old who went to a showcase as a sophomore and is starting to get looks. And then August 1st comes their junior year and coaches start talking to them. Like, how would you encourage parents to support their kids going through that?
I think that there is a line between supporting your kid through the recruitment process and doing it for them. And I think I've seen a lot more of parents trying to do it for them. Like, I'll talk to a couple girls at camps or around here, and a parent will be like, hey, like, my kid's just not grasping the recruitment process. And I'm like, okay, so what do you mean? And they're like, well, every weekend when we play, like, I'm sending their emails, like, I'm contacting coaches. And it kind of goes back to you can't force them to do something they don't want to. Like, if a kid wants to play in college that bad, they know the importance of the recruitment process. Like, I will be the first person to say it is the most repetitive thing. It seems like you're doing all this stuff for nothing, but you're not. Like, the recruitment process is how coaches figure out who you are, figure out everything about you that they want to see. Like, most coaches do care. All coaches are going to care if you're good, but my coach almost cares more about the person you are outside of it. And they can't learn who you are outside of your sport if your parent's the one doing everything. And so I think just stressing to them that, like, if this is something you truly want, this is the extent you're going to have to go through to get it, rather than, yeah, I know you don't want to do it, but I want you to do it. And since you're not, I'm going to do it for you. Like, if they don't do it, they'll figure out from their friends' successes or failures that, like, oh, I need to step it up, or I wish my friend was stepping it up. Like, it's a learning process for sure, but that's why it starts so soon into high school, that you have time to figure it out.
So that junior and senior year, really, you mentioned the 5 things you can be good at earlier. That junior and senior year, that's a 6th thing that really, if you're wanting to get recruited, that's going to take up your time too, because you have to
Yeah.
train, you have to play, you have to do your schoolwork, you have to sleep, you have to fuel yourself, but you also have to have time in your schedule regularly to reach out to coaches, to send those things, to do the work. And if the athlete's not willing to do that work themselves, is it fair to say that they're not going to have as great of an experience in college because they're going to get there and the coach is going to find out they're a different player than the person they've been talking to because mom and dad have been doing everything for them, and that actually sets them further behind? Is that a fair thing to say? Probably.
Yes, I think that is a very fair thing to say because I know a lot of people that made it through with like their friends doing their work, their parents helping them with this, them not being the main like driver of their own process. And once you get to college, like you don't have that. You have to be doing everything for yourself. Like nobody's just going to hand anything to you anymore. And so I think the earlier kids realize that, the more successful they'll be throughout that process.
I remember when I worked for the Liberty football team, this is 15 years ago at this point now, but one of the things I would hear coaches say is the kid that came to campus was different than who they thought they were recruiting. Mm-hmm. And I think like those kids were always the ones that ended up flaming out pretty quickly because they were not the ones who made as great of a connection with the coaches, or it might have been the coach thought they were going to be this, but mom and dad were like so intently holding it close. They're like, say this, do this, respond this way. And then when they got there on their own, it's like, you're not the same kid we recruited. What happened to that kid we wanted? And then if they can't flip the switch to become that kid, well, what happened to you? Well, it didn't work out. And then story after story from there.
Yeah. And even like not within the recruiting process too, like it's important to don't project yourself as anything that you can't hold the standard up to, because when I did go into the transfer portal after my sophomore year and my coach from Virginia Tech was interested in me, he called one of my teammates from 2 years prior. He called the coach that recruited me to Radford but wasn't there while I was there, and he called someone else, but two people I hadn't talked to in 2 years, asking about the type of person I was, my work ethic, if it was worth taking me in, like if I was the type of person that his program needed, stuff like that. And so I think I never realized before that how much they look at like not just how you play, but who you are. And so if your parents are who you are and are trying to portray for you who you are, no one's going to know who you are if you aren't doing it yourself. If that makes sense.
It does. I want to end this on a fun note. I like ending on something to make people smile. Your senior season, your last year playing, what are you looking forward to most at the pinnacle climax of your softball career in 2025?
Well, I'm hoping to make it to a World Series this year. So I'm hoping that is the end all of my senior season, but there's no time to waste anymore. Like I'm excited that I can put it all out there this year. Like I can build all season, but after that, there's nothing more besides pro, which I do hope happens too. But I can leave it all out there. Like I can give 125 every day. I can focus on this year because it's the last year I have, and hopefully win a World Series. Know that everything I did throughout middle school and high school got me to this moment and helped me through it all.
When you're done, so I do PA for the local high school baseball team here, and on senior night, I always have the guys write a thank you to their parents that we announce as they bring their parents out on the field. It's like, this kid's done this. These are his accomplishments. Mom and dad, this is what he wants to say to you. When you're done, what's your thank you to your mom?
I would probably say thank you for not making it too deep. Like, thank you for making it something that I always wanted to do and always enjoyed doing rather than something I had to do and something that I didn't want to do. Like, I would say, thank you for making everything possible, like getting me everywhere, funding everything I needed to up until even now, being there for all of it. Like, she's only ever missed 3 games in my life. Like, being that supportive through it all has helped a lot.
That's awesome. Cori, thanks so much for being on with us. I appreciate it so much.
Of course.
That is it for today. If you enjoyed the show, we invite you to go ahead and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you get podcasts, go ahead and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe and that like button. If you think this episode could help someone, the best way you could help us is by sharing it with a friend. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to us. We hope you enjoy your practices. We hope you enjoy wherever you're going for a game this weekend. Most of all, I hope you enjoy watching your kid play and compete this week. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next time.